My title today is Are You Sabotaging Yourself? I'd like to backtrack a little bit and kind of put this topic of beliefs in our subconscious mind in a greater context. And I'll start by telling you a little story about something that kind of introduced me to this idea. When I lived in Dallas, when Carol and I lived there, I taught a class for 8 years at a Unity Church every Sunday morning. And there was a man in our class. His name was Stephen, too, S-E-P-H-E-N, though. Stephen never had a lot of money and always seemed to need money, and, you know, that was the case for lots of people, not unusual. But he came up to me one day and said, you know, I think I've got an idea for a way for me to make some money. And he described an event he would like to hold, and he was wondering whether I would let him announce and advertise that event to our class. So I said, well, what is it? You know, he told me about it, and when I heard it, I said, you know what? I think everybody in this class would love to go to that event and pay for it. Yes, indeed. I said, look, you've got 2 weeks before the event. Why don't you next week bring some Xerox copies of on a piece of paper and pass it out that says when it is, what it is, how much it costs, and that kind of thing, the address and all that. He said, sure, great, thank you. I said, no problem. So the next Sunday comes, and he comes into class, and I say, okay, Stephen, it's time for you to hand out your the announcement about your great event that you want to host. And he said, well, I didn't make those copies. I forgot to. I said, okay. Well, we'll announce your event then. So he announced it. You know, nobody's sitting there with pen and paper in hand. So they heard the information, but they didn't really jot down mentally, well, this time, this place, this address. They weren't getting that. And so after class, they said, hey, you know, it's really not a problem. You've got one more week. Next week, for sure, bring this printed information because, you know, people aren't going to show up just based on the memory of you saying something in class. And so the next week comes along. I fully expect to see him there with his flyers in hand, and he didn't come to class at all. I didn't think too much about that. I said, okay, well, gee, that's too bad. And I told the people what I could remember about the event. And they said, yeah, we'll check into it. And, well, I get a call, you know, after the event date had passed, and he says, hey, what happened? You know, I don't understand. Nobody came to my event. I said, well, you know, you had 2 Sundays to tell people what it was, and I suggested that you write it down and pass it out, and you didn't do that. And he said, so that's just how that goes, you know. He said, oh, yeah, I guess so. Now, I didn't think too much about that until I realized that this was a pattern in this person's life. He was continually coming up with ideas, and then in ways that was obvious to me and others, sabotaging his ability to make that happen or to let anybody know what he was doing or what was going on. And I thought, that's very, very odd. And as time went on, though, I was talking to him once, and the gist of the conversation ended up that I found out something about one of his deeply held beliefs. It wasn't a subconscious belief, but it was certainly in the back of his mind. And that was that life is about suffering, and that if you want to grow spiritually, you need to suffer, you have to suffer. And, you know, I agreed that we do grow through suffering, and we often do suffer and learn from it, but a lot of that is needless. We subject ourselves to it needlessly. So I don't know if it's all about suffering, you have to suffer. But that was his idea. I said, okay, to each his own. And I didn't draw any conclusions based on that either. But then somebody told me later, and I've sort of got out of touch with this person by this point, that he had another belief going on, which was that, you know, if you do make money, the more money you make, the more you have to give it to the government in taxes, and they spend it on bad things. So all of a sudden it kind of dawned on me. I said, oh, I get it. This person believes that you need to suffer, and boy, if you make money, it's going to be spent on some terrible things, defense contracts or bad for the ecology, whatever it was. So I asked you, well, this guy said he'd like to make some money and be successful at these events he wanted to hold. Was he really going to let himself to do that? No way. He would sabotage himself because if he were to do that, he would be going against what he firmly believed to be true about life, some decisions he had made along the line. So to me, this is one, not the perfect example, but a pretty good example of one of the principles that Unity teaches. And it's really the principle that I think makes us unique among spiritual organizations, and it's a principle that I really like because it asks us to take personal responsibility for the life we're experiencing. Not blaming it on God or the devil or anything else, you know, it has a lot to do with you. And I don't believe Unity actually put it this way, but it's been said this way for a long time. And the principle is this: thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So let's talk about that sentence for a minute. Thoughts held. Thoughts held. We're not talking about passing thoughts, everyday thoughts, or thoughts that come and go. We're talking about those that you hold on to, those that you give time to, energy, attention to. And those often become beliefs, our beliefs. And our beliefs don't have to be based on fact, do they? They can be true or not true in the big scheme of things. They're just what we believe. And the word produce, I like the word produce in this sentence because it's indicating that we're not talking about instant manifestation, that you think something and it is. We're talking about something that's more of a process over time. And my observation is that process invariably involves our personal choices, the choices that we make. Those choices are whether to do something or not do it, say something or not say something, go somewhere or not go somewhere. And those choices are always influenced heavily by what? Our beliefs. So our beliefs influence our choices, which results in what we produce in our life. After their kind, well, you know what that means. You can actually have some great beliefs that influence your choices, and you're very successful and happy and things that enhance your life. But the opposite is also true. You can have beliefs that are not conducive to producing something that you want in your life, and you end up sabotaging yourself. And finally, thoughts held in mind, in mind. So what part of the mind are we talking about? The conscious mind? Sure, you bet. Those things that we're fully aware that we believe, and right away we'll say to somebody, no, I don't think that, or I don't believe that, or I'm not going to do that because of this. But then there's also what I call semi-conscious ideas, which is what Stephen had in this example I gave. This idea that life's about suffering and that, money's not good because too much goes to the government to be spent on bad things, that wasn't in the forefront of his mind, was it? If it was, he wouldn't have said, hey, I want to make money. He wouldn't even have said that. In his consciousness, he thought he wanted that. But in kind of the back of his mind, he realized, yeah, but if I do, I won't be living the life that I think is true. But what I really want to get to today, as you may have gathered from the meditation, what about the beliefs in our subconscious mind? Ideas that we are not even consciously aware we have. Can those subconscious beliefs influence our choices and sabotage our ability to have truly free and fulfilling lives? You bet they can. Now, most of these beliefs originate early in childhood, and for lots of various reasons. They're beliefs that we decide, this is how life works, this is how the world works, this is how God works, this is my role in the world. You know, all that stuff we come to believe at a fairly early age. One thing that many of us suffer to one degree or another from, or it influences us, is the idea that we're not worthy and deserving. As I remember from my psychology classes in college, you're not born with self-esteem. You are esteemed by your parents. They say you are great, you are good, you are worthy. They give you that. Then you go about the process as you age of reaffirming that for yourself. That's esteeming yourself and self-esteem. But really has to be given to you. And a lot of us, you know, for various reasons that are just kind of understandable, it doesn't always happen. And so some part of us may say consciously, I really want that. I want this, I deserve this. But part of us, in the back of our mind, that subconscious little child saying, no, you're not really worthy of that. You know you're not. And so we will make choices that actually will sabotage our ability to get what we think in the forefront of our mind we want. Some of this stuff comes out very normally, too, like birth order, for instance. Let's say you are the firstborn, and you have some other siblings beneath you, but for whatever reasons in your family system, you ended up being the caretaker of those children. You were always taking care of them. And as you grow up, at one point you decide, I get it. I'm the caretaker. I am here to take care of people. That's my role in the world. And it becomes a very strict belief. And so you may go the rest of your life taking care of everybody all the time. Well, other people will applaud you for that. They'll say, what an admirable person. But for that person, really, their life is limited. If they can never actually say, hey, you know what? You're old enough to take care of yourself. I'm going on vacation. If they don't really have the freedom to do that, they're very limited. And then the opposite is also true. Let's say you're the last born. You're the baby in the family. And everybody's always taking care of you. And that's what you've gotten used to. And you say, I'm the baby. Everyone will take care of you. Well, again, your life is very limited if you are never able to stand on your own 2 feet. And you may be thinking you're living a happy life with everybody taking care of you, except that those people are probably really resenting you. And those relationships are suffering because they think you should be old enough and mature enough to take care of yourself. So any of these things can influence our choices, the way we behave, and the life we experience. But here's what I'm finally building up to. What can you do about a sabotaging belief if you don't even know you have it? You know, when you make these choices in life, you think they're perfectly reasonable. But other people would say, that's not a reasonable choice. For Stephen to sabotage his ability to just Xerox off a piece of paper seemed crazy to me. But whatever reason he had seemed reasonable to him at the time. Now, there are various techniques for getting at what is sabotaging myself. What ideas do I have? How can I bring those to the light to dispel them? And there are lots of techniques for various reasons, because not all techniques work on all people, and not all techniques work for various types of subconscious ideas you have. So I'm going to suggest three things to you today, and we're going to do one right here, right now. One of them is what I call the white light meditation. And if you would like to explore that technique, it's actually on my website. It's absolutely free. It's just a free download. And I don't think you even have to write this down. Oh, I should have Xeroxed the flyer. Oh, well. It's pretty simple to remember. You just go to rowrowrow.com. That's my website, rowrowrow.com. Go to the free downloads page. Look down at the bottom, and you'll see the white light meditation. It'll look like a CD, but it's not. So you just click on whatever you're supposed to click on there, and you can either download it or actually it'll play right there on the site. You can just listen to it right from your computer. So that's one thing. Do the white light meditation. It's just a way to kind of get into a state of mind where you start picturing these ideas coming to light and dispelling them and replacing them with something more productive. The second one I want to mention, here it is. Some of you may be a big fan of Joe Vitale. You remember him from The Secret? He wrote The Attractor Factor. He's big on the law of attraction. I'm not a big fan of his, actually, but he did write this book called The Key right after The Secret came out, because he realized that a lot of people were doing everything you're supposed to do to attract what you want in your life, and it wasn't working. Why? Because they were making choices to sabotage that all along the way. And they were subconsciously driven choices. So he's explored 10 different techniques for bringing sabotaging ideas to light so you can dispel them and replace them. And some of them are complete in here, but some of them are like tell you to go somewhere else. Go to this website and go to that. But it's something you can look into. The Key by Joe Vitale. The last thing, though, that I want to present to you today is a technique that I was introduced to kind of accidentally through a story I'm going to tell you. And this is something you can do right here, right now. It may work for some of you. It has worked for me on several occasions right on the spot. And I know it's worked in some of my workshops right on the spot. And here's what it is. And it only works on certain kind of ideas, so it's not an all-inclusive technique. What you do is look for repeating patterns in your life that have not proved to be beneficial to you. Repeating patterns that you don't like. It's the kind of patterns and things that happen where you tend to think or say, why is this always happening to me? Why is this always happening to me? Now, there's nothing wrong with that question in the fact that you really, truly want to know why. You don't like it, and you want this to go away. You want to know why. Why is it happening? The problem with that sentence, the way it's expressed, is the to me part. To you? Oh, it's happening to you, is it? The world is doing it to you. God is doing it to you. The other people are doing it to you. How are you going to change that? How can you fix that? Change other people? Change the world? Change God? You have tried that, and you know that does not work. What you need to do, or what I suggest that you do, is turn that phrase around and get to the real heart of the matter, what I believe to be the truth. Instead of saying, why is this always happening to me? You say something along the lines of, at some level, I must want this experience. I must even be creating it. Why would I? Take personal responsibility for it. Take personal responsibility for what you're experiencing, because only then will you have the power to undo it. You need to claim the power to change it by accepting that you created it in the first place. So you do have the power to make a different choice. So at some level, I must want this experience. Why would I? Why would I create that? When you say that, for me, on 3 different occasions, and I know for some other people, the answer why has popped right up, come right up out of the subconscious mind. And then when it does come up, often you can see the false nature of that belief or idea that pops up. Because, like I said, sometimes these are developed in childhood. It's just the misunderstandings and conclusions of a child, not based on really accurate assessment of what's going on. And then you can replace it with an idea that's more productive. let me tell you a story, and I'll give you a good example of what I'm talking about. This is my personal story, and it's where I kind of came across this. It wasn't a technique, but I've made it into a technique. You'll enjoy this story. It's kind of like watching a sitcom. It'd be like an episode of Seinfeld. It's a long story that's very entertaining. All right. I recognized a pattern in my life long ago. I was the person who was always left off of lists, the person who was always forgotten. I'd go into a room with 10 people. They'd make a list of everybody who was in the room, and I wasn't on the list. They only showed 9 people. I would sign up for a seminar, and I would pay my money, and I would go to the seminar, and I'd go to the table where all the seminar badges are laid out and the things you put on over your thing with your name and the big symbol and artwork. And oh no, Mr. Taylor, we don't. Did you sign up? We don't have anything for you here. We don't see that for you. But you did pay? Okay. Well, here we'll make something up for you. I was always the one with the little made-up badge. And it came to a head to me once in my advertising career, around the age of 40. I was up for an award for an ad I had written. It was a magazine ad, a spread, 2 pages for American Airlines. And I go to the award ceremony, and there's dinner first, and we're all sitting at our tables, and my category comes up, and they say, and the winner of the award for this category is, and when they said that, my ad went up on the screen. I'm thinking, I've won. And I began to stand up, and they called out somebody else's name as being the creator of that ad. Joe Turner, come up and get your award. I'm like, Joe Turner? I'm looking at the ad, and I'm kind of doing this in my seat. Do I get it? Do I don't get it? Meanwhile, Joe Turner over there, he's full of self-esteem. He just pops right up and looks and says, well, I didn't do that ad, but they must have put up the wrong slide. I'm sure I won. He goes up, grabs the award. Thank you, everybody. It sits back down. So I'm thinking, well, what happened? Maybe he did win. And they just showed my ad, unfortunately. Or maybe that ad won. I won, and they had the wrong name. So I go up afterwards and say, hey, to the committee, in this category, you showed this ad and called up Joe Turner for winning it. I said, yeah. I said, no, he didn't write that ad. I wrote that ad, but who won, Joe Turner or the ad or what? And they say, oh, what? Okay, so they look down the list and they say, okay, clearly the winner in this category was whoever wrote that ad, Joe Turner. I said, no, I wrote that ad. You did? Oh, well, I guess you won. Oh, yeah. So I said, well, come to our headquarters on Monday and we'll give you a duplicate award. Oh. So I go, and I think I'm the George Costanza in this episode of Seinfeld. So I go to the headquarters, and they give me the award. This is in Dallas. I take it, go out in the streets of Dallas. Hey, everybody, cars sweeping by. I'm a winner. So I was really bummed out about this, really depressed. In fact, I go into a shame spiral. I'm spiraling down, and people in my work know I'm really depressed and unhappy, and one person says, you know what, you need to go see a therapist about that. You need to talk about this issue. And I said, you know what, I've never gone to one before, but I will go because I know this is not my only issue. I'm probably overdue for a little therapy session. So somebody recommends somebody named Charlie. It's a woman, actually, but her name was Charlie. And I go see Charlie, and I go to the door of the, her suite in the office building, and I'm a little bit early. I knock on the door, and, there's no answer. I think, I am a little early. She's probably in another session. I'll just wait here for a few moments. So my time is like 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. 2 o'clock arrives, and listen at the door. I don't hear anything. Knock again. Nothing. I wait and I wait. I try the door handle. I finally conclude, she's not here. She is not here for our appointment. This is before cell phones. Drive back to the office, call her up. Charlie, did I make a mistake? I thought we had made an appointment for 2 o'clock on Tuesday. This is Steve Taylor. And there's a silence for a minute. She says, Mr. Taylor, I am so sorry. I forgot you. She says, oh, this has never happened to me before. And I'm thinking, it's happened to me before. She said, look, I am so sorry, but here's how I can make this up to you. If you will come tomorrow, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I'll be there, of course. And our initial session to get to know you will be no charge. I'm thinking, Okay, well, hey, maybe this is to my benefit. I'm going to get a free session now. Yay. So I go. You see what's coming, right? Oh, yeah. I go at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. Doors closed. I knock. No answer. Wait a few minutes. No answer. Go back to my office. Call her up. Said, Charlie, I'm sure that we had an appointment at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. And were you in there, or did something happen that you couldn't make it, or, because you weren't there? And she said, after a longer pause, Mr. Taylor, I don't know what to say to you. I forgot you again. She said, I want to say something here. She said, there's no way you're going to ever use me as your therapist at this point because you can't trust me, and I understand that. But I do feel that since I'm never going to see you again, or for the first time, I would like to say something to you. Do you think perhaps you have something to do with me not showing up? Would you consider that maybe you have something to do with this experience of me not being there? And I'm thinking, what? Well, what would I have to do with you not showing up? Oh, yeah, I'll consider it. And I hung up the phone. Well, to my credit, I have been confronted a few times in my life that I have considered what was being said to me. And in this case, a little part of me was willing to consider, well, maybe I have something to do with that. What am I, magical? I can't, what would this be? But I got to tell you, that one little bit of willingness to say, perhaps I am at the root of this experience, the answer came right up immediately. It was amazing. It'll take me a minute to explain what it was, but it really happened in pretty much an instant. First thing that came up was a memory of my birth order and my experience in my family. I was born 17 years after my sister, 20 years after my brother. The 17 years had gone by. I was not planned for it, and I always knew that. I always knew I was not planned for it. But that's no big deal. Half the world is not planned for it and knows it. But you know what? When I remembered that, the belief popped right up out of my subconscious mind, and it was in a statement. Oh, I believe I'm not supposed to be here. Now, when I say that to you, it sounds kind of innocuous. So what? I'm not supposed to be here. But no. Underneath that was this other belief, this another way of wording it, which is, oh, I'm not supposed to exist. I am a mistake, not just to my parents. I am a mistake in the universe. I am not supposed to exist in the universe. That's what I have been thinking in a subconscious state since I was 3 or 4 years old. I did not know that. That popped right up for me. And my life kind of flashed before my eyes to see, is that true or not? And I could see how the choices I had been making and how I had been behaving my whole life. I would go into a room, go over in the corner, and be like, don't mind me, I'm just over here. I don't want to bother anybody, I'm just over here. I never wanted to impose on anybody else in life because I felt like everybody's here on a mission, I'm not supposed to be here, and I'd just be in the way, so I'll just be over here in the crack. And I just had this underlying feeling that I was in people's way, I wasn't supposed to be here, and so I did everything by myself and stayed by myself and just, blended into the wallpaper at any kind of party or function. It was so bad, I had been in a share group with a bunch of men on Sunday afternoons for 2 hours at a time, and I ran into one of these guys after 6 weeks of this thing and said, hey, how you doing? I'm sorry, you are? What? I'm Steve, from the share group. No, not ringing a bell. Every Sunday afternoon, 2 hours at a time, a bunch of guys revealing our lives. No, I don't recall you being there. There were only 6 of us. That's how good I was at putting out no vibrations, no vibe, just not existing. So I have revealed the problem, the belief. I'm not supposed to exist. I'm not supposed to be here. But what do you do with that? That doesn't really solve the problem, does it? It just shows you what the problem is. You have to replace the idea that comes up. If you do this technique and something comes up for you, you've got to replace it with another idea. And this will show you how strong subconscious ideas are. Because I already had a replacement idea in the forefront of my mind, and I had it since I was 14 years old, based on experience I had, a mystical experience. You don't have to buy into this, although I believe many of you will. I believe in reincarnation very, very strongly. And I believe that as part of that process, you choose your parents. They set up a pattern for you, a lifestyle, circumstances, things that set you on a certain jumping off point for your life that was likely to point you in a particular direction. So I believed since the age of 14 that I chose my parents. You know, I might have been a surprise to them when I arrived, but I wasn't a surprise to me. That was all in my conscious awareness. And yet subconsciously, the little child saying, you're not supposed to exist, totally overruled that and changed my behavior. But when I saw the childish nature of this idea, I'm not supposed to exist, when it finally came up, I said, well, that's not correct. I chose to be here. That's not correct at all. Now, I can't tell you that I have a memory of all of a sudden being a different kind of person, but I'm sure I was. I'm sure the following day I went into work, and when I said, hello, everybody, I'm here, it was different. It was like, I'm here. You're here, we're all here, and we all have a right to be here. But I am not less than you. I don't need to hide over in the corner. I am just as much here as you are. And you know what? That pattern ceased to exist. In fact, I not only didn't get left off of lists, I began to put it at the top of the list. And I interviewed for a new job once, went in there, got the position, and they said, hey, when you come over here to this new company, would you like that corner office over there with the windows and the mirrors and the bookshelves and all that? I said, the corner office? You mean the one that's reserved for the people that are higher up than me? He said, yeah. I said, but I don't understand. That's for, we would be the people senior to me. I said, well, we know, but we thought you might like to have it. Yes, I would like to have that. I deserve it and I want it. So that's my story. And that's something that I don't know if it worked for anybody here today, but in a more contemplative mood, you might want to go home and just, if you find a pattern, say, I must be creating this. I must want this. Why would I? See if that comes up for you. If it does, replace it with a belief. One of the beliefs of all that we should kind of all have, that's kind of the overriding belief, is that we are holy children of God. And God wants nothing more than to guide us to our highest good and to what we want to have, do, or be in life. So, accept that reality of your holy and holy love nature, and that will undo a lot right there. But then when you get this idea, I think you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to hold that thought in your mind, affirm it, and embrace it. Because after all, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Thank you.